Hi, it's a rainy day in April, and I'm getting kind of tired of the same old breakfast. I usually have eggs and some kind of bread, and I decided to look up how to make a Dutch baby pancake, which I used to make years ago. And so I got this New York Times recipe, which I changed slightly. In a blender, I put 3 eggs, a half a cup of flour. I'll show you the half a cup. Oh, it's in the sink. Half a cup of flour. Small. Half a cup of milk. I used flax milk. I'm sure most milks work when I've made pancakes. And 1 tablespoon of sugar. I used raw organic sugar. This recipe calls for a pinch of nutmeg. I looked at some other recipes. I did put I scraped a little bit of nutmeg on a rasp from a nutmeg nut and put that all in the blender. And I added a touch of vanilla. Blend it up till it's smooth. And then it calls for 4 tablespoons of butter for the pan. And it says to use a 10-inch skillet. Most say to use cast iron, but you don't have to if you have a oven-proof 10-inch skillet. I have my grandmother's 10-inch cast iron skillet. One commenter said the 4 tablespoons of butter was overkill, and other recipes called for 2 tablespoons of butter. So 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter, I would guess, but it said 425 oven. So my oven has come to 425, and it is ready. You put the pan into the oven with the butter cold and put it in, and watch until the butter melts before pouring the batter in. So let's see, we'll let that, I'll keep an eye on that, and then we will get back. Another thing that some of the commenters said was that the ingredients, which I didn't do because I didn't read the comments till after I put the batter together, but that the ingredients should be room temperature. Eggs, so in order to get the best puff from this. So the eggs, the milk, the whatever else. The butter, I don't think so. I think the pan needs a chance to get hot, because other recipes said heat the pan while the oven is heating, because the hot pan, and that was, I think, without the butter. So they felt that the hot pan would make a nice crisp, quick cooking, puffy pancake. I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, I've made soufflés, and you know, those containers, the ramekins, are not hot in order to make the soufflé puff up. It's the oven has to be hot, and the ingredients just mixed with a lot of eggs. That's what I've found. Why is the light going in and out on here? So I'm just waiting for the butter to melt. I'm watching that. Just wanted to give you those other tips that viewers and commenters had to say. So we have the butter melted in the skillet. Let me just turn this down. I don't like to put it on the stovetop. I've had a stovetop crack, which I used to think was ridiculous when my father would get mad at me for putting hot pans on top of the stove. But it happened to me, so I said, well, I guess he was right. And that's what I read afterwards. So the butter is melted, and I'm going to pour the batter in. Let me see if I can move this over. a little bit to show you that process. Okay, so the butter is melted, the pan is heated a bit. Yeah, I think the 2 tablespoons of butter looks to be pretty good. I guess I could try to get a scraper, scrape some more out. Okay, don't forget the pan's hot. You don't want to touch it. Usually I leave a hot mitt on the pan so I don't accidentally grab it and cause blisters. And in this coronavirus, you don't want to end up in the doctor's office. So I'm just putting this into the oven. And what is the time on this? Hold on one second. So this needs to bake for 20 minutes at the 425, and then lower the temperature to 300 degrees and bake it for 5 minutes longer, which maybe that heats up the middle, because I would think the 425 gives it the golden brown color in the crust. And once you remove it from the oven, you cut it up and top it with whatever you want to top it with. A lot of people put fruit. Some people put maple syrup, like a regular pancake. Some people put jam, butter, confectioner's sugar, cinnamon sugar. But it's 10 inches around, so if you're not going to eat the whole thing, or you're not going to eat it all at once, you can use different toppings. Okay, so let's wait until that comes out and I'll show it to you. Okay, so we have 4 minutes. I had lowered the temperature to 300. It looks a little crusty. It puffed up nicely. I'll show it to you in a minute, but I have these toppings to try: maple syrup, strawberry jam. I prefer raspberry, but couldn't find any. This is my little bit of cinnamon sugar that's left. And then I have nutmeg that you can grate on top, or you can just take a little bit of nutmeg, that ground nutmeg, in a container, and we'll cut a wedge of it as soon as it's done. It looks pretty done. So yeah, I think I like New York Times recipes. They seem to be the best combination. I also like America's Test Kitchen, but sometimes I've compared recipes between, an America's Test Kitchen recipe such as polenta, and then the New York Times recipe for polenta. Specifically, the Nigella Lawson recipe, and she had lived in and learned how to cook in Italy, so that was the best. I did make that one and I loved it. Maybe I'll make it sometime on video. But yeah, New York Times has some good recipes, so I think the next recipe I'm going to make is some rich chocolate cookies from the New York Times, and see how that comes out. This looks like it's just about ready. Boy, I think this is done. I don't want it to get too crusty, so I'm going to shut this off, and I'm taking it out. Alrighty, so I have here we go. And this is the Dutch baby. Let's see if we can get this in here. Can you see it? It's puffed up nicely. It's like a Yorkshire pudding or a popover, same kind of recipe. And we need to get a knife. I don't know if this knife is good enough, but let's see. You're supposed to cut it into wedges, so we cut it and let out some of the steam. Let's see. Oh, nice and brown on the bottom. It's not burnt. It looks like it. I was afraid it was burning, but I cooked this about maybe a minute or two less than recommended, because it seemed like this was getting very cooked, very dark, and I didn't want it to burn and crust up on the bottom. I'm going to put a mitt here. It's a little dirty, I know. I washed it. I did wash it the other day. And here's my wedge of Dutch baby pancake. I think I like to put a little bit of butter on it. And then some jam. I think I'll put some jam to start. But, so give you another look at the pancake. It's kind of hollow inside, you can see. It does puff up like a popover, which is why I like it. I love popovers and Yorkshire pudding. This is something that you can make savory as with roast beef and gravy. For Yorkshire pudding too, but it's a treat. This is a treat. I used to make homemade waffles and stuff like this for Christmas morning breakfast. So I think this is good for quarantine rainy Saturday breakfast. You know, you got to do something to change up the time. Every day I wake up like, what day is it? Is it a day where I have to go back to work, or and this was break week, so I didn't have to work any day, so every day I was like, what day is it? This is quarantine. But let me just try this. I'm going to put a little bit of jam on, and I'll take a taste and let you know how it tastes. Fork. I only put a little bit of jam. I put a little bit of jam on, and I'm gonna cut it. I gotta get myself one of those things my brother has. You just move your hands and it moves the camera up. So here we go. I have some tea, some Tazo awake tea. Keep me awake on a rainy day. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too much sugar. It tastes a little sweet. A little sweet. You could cut down on the sugar if you like it a little more savory. But it's kind of like a nice dessert taste as well, because it has that sweet, eggy taste to it. So, yeah, give it a try. Hope you enjoy your day. Take care.